Well, hey there, friend, and welcome back for another episode of the Your.Hair.Mentor podcast, where I'm your host and your hair mentor, Crystal Green. And I invite you to come take a listen to the top leaders and thinkers and experts and innovators in the beauty industry as they share their stories of triumph and struggles and success in creating their businesses behind the chair. I hope you enjoy these episodes just as much as I did recording them. See you on the inside, friends.
Well, let's go ahead and just kind of jump on in here, Hannah. And for my listeners that don't know, and I keep pronouncing your business incorrectly. I keep saying Salon Environment, but it's Salonvironment, right?
Yes.
Can you give me a brief introduction of who Hannah is at Salonvironment? I said it.
Thank you for the introduction. So I like to call myself, I just like to be just Hannah at Salonvironment because I like to be everyone's friend and helping hand. But, I will also go by Recyclops. And true story, it is on my LinkedIn. I've gotten actually a couple of laughs.
That is clever. I love that. Oh my gosh.
People will never forget it either.
No.
Which is nice. So I do try to do Salonvironment essentially just kind of my love letter back to the public, my clients, the industry in general, and just kind of my the overall community. So we kind of try to do everything we can at Salonvironment, which is a lot of education, a lot of one-on-one consulting and coaching, and even just offering different opportunities and solutions to people that are struggling with, for lack of a better term, sustainability in the salon.
Right. Yeah, I was trying to think of words to use to describe you in my stories. It was like, are we talking eco-friendly, sustainability, and environment friendly? I mean, it all works, right? They're all kind of like buzzwords, but they're all very appropriate to describe what we're talking about.
Right. I think you've hit the nail on the head because, right, what really is sustainability? Because it's used so often and it can be used, to describe a variety of different ways. Like, is your business sustainable? But that could mean financially, that could just be as a business in general. Does it mean you have good ethical practices? Are you, following, quote unquote green, um, just alternative ways of being behind the chair? I mean, there's so many different ways. So all of them work though, right?
Yeah.
Environmentally friendly, eco-conscious, planet lover, whatever.
Yeah, yeah. And so then you specifically focus on the shifts that can happen to make a salon or hairstylist in practice be more eco-friendly, eco-conscious, and that's where your focus of sustainability is, right?
Yes. It's so, I have to say, it's so hard currently because, I mean, just in general, we don't have a great infrastructure in the United States to help deal with some of the problems that we face. We talk a lot about how much waste there is in a salon, but we're not really given a lot of options to be able to reduce some of that waste or have, use alternative products, especially with even just like our time of
Mm-hmm.
researching or who can you trust to buy certain things from, because of course we deal with public health all the time, right? I mean,
Yeah,
our beauty
yeah.
school courses was based on, hey, are you going to be spreading disease in the salon? This is how you have to stop it right there.
Right.
So so it's a little bit hard, but
It,
um
it's hard just as a consumer, honestly. Like in my personal life, making choices to purchase from companies that are practicing, I guess, like better packaging and ingredients, and all of that takes time just to be an end consumer. And so when you talk about being someone to utilize that in your business is like a whole nother layer of work and research and trust in companies, right? That then, because you're then putting your name on it, right? You're not just the end consumer, but you're like putting it out there as like your niche or your shtick or like whatever. So you want to feel really good about it. Hannah, I'd love to talk about why this is necessary and maybe kind of shed some light for those that don't know how. I hate to use the word toxic because I feel like that's like so overused these days. Like everything's toxic, but like truly how toxic the beauty industry is. And so I know we talked a little bit about statistics. Did you have any that you could share with us that might be kind of impactful?
Well, I do love using the statistics from Green Circle salons because they are the ones that really started the conversation about sustainability in the salon, in my opinion, as more of like a mainstream, widespread topic in the industry. So with their research, they're based in North America. So they work with salons in Canada and the US, primarily with recycling, for those of you who don't know. But with their research, the beauty industry produces about 877 pounds of waste a minute.
A minute?
A minute. And so
Oh,
that's about I believe, so what is that? That's like 40 420,000 pounds of waste like a day.
that's
um
awful.
which is just right. It's crazy. And we don't think about it because everything we use, I shouldn't say everything, but a lot of things we use are single use. And a lot of things you really can't reuse, like foil. You're not
Mhm.
going to wash it off
Yeah.
to then be able to reuse it. But oh my gosh, yeah, it's crazy. So we're producing so much waste. We have globally, 120 billion units of cosmetic packaging is also created a year. And that seems to be pretty steady. And that's everything, right? That's plastic. That's
Hmm.
that's the makeup, or
Hmm.
it's makeup packaging. It's the foil that we use for our clients' hair. It's everything, in between as
Yeah.
well too. So it's I don't know, yeah, there's just a lot that is for the salon and cosmetic industry, which is great that we have all those options, but we don't really have the option to reduce. And we do have to go out of our way to also find which, like, I love that you said that earlier. It's a lot of time.
Hmm.
It's a ton of time to research, hey, how can I be, less toxic
Right. Right.
in the industry, or even, cosmetics and products that we use. I, I mean, cosmetics haven't really been the regulations haven't necessarily been updated for 80 years. It is changing, which is great.
Hmm.
The last couple of years, there's been um, a huge battle with putting these regulations in place, so we don't have to deal with actual toxic ingredients in our products, like PFAS, or microplastics,
Hmm.
or even things like asbestos, which doesn't
Right.
have to necessarily be put on the label. Of some
Hmm.
of these products. So it's really, I mean, there's just so many things in the beauty industry that's just, for lack of a better term, like you said, that are very toxic, but they are things that are changing, which is fantastic, but they're also not going to change without us voicing our support as well too. So I think that's really fantastic that we have this huge movement in the industry currently. It seems like the conversations about it are being brought up more. Companies are taking notice. They're offering items that you can refill instead of having to buy another bottle for,
Yes.
or they're replacing ingredients in their products. So then it has a little bit more. It has more natural, the items are just more natural, they're more organic, and again, just ethically made, which is
Mm-hmm.
also really fantastic.
Yeah, and someone brought something up years ago that I just remembered in terms of like the products that we're using in the salon and them getting washed down the drain in our salons and how that affects like the watershed after too. So it's not just ingredients that are healthier for us as we're touching them on our bodies, but healthier for everyone downstream in that water system and all of those chemicals potentially in there and harmful ingredients. And so I've been a firm believer personally in more healthy ingredients for a long time for myself, but also thinking, for generations to come too.
I love that you bring that up, Crystal, because I think it's a huge gray area in our industry because, and this is at least for the state of Michigan, I can't say for everywhere, because um, hazardous waste is are usually taken care of state by state.
Mm-hmm.
How to deal with it, basically. But in the state of Michigan, as an individual, I can bring as an individual, hair color, any other sort of hair chemicals is considered a hazardous waste. But as soon as you go commercial, they don't mention it at all. It's like salons slip right through the cracks. Um,
Interesting.
so so like when I went on our like our portion of like or Michigan's EPA website, essentially it's called Eagle.
Uh-huh.
um but I'm like going through because I want to know, hey, what happens if I can offer to take these products from people? Well, there's a ton of things you have to follow if you're doing it commercially.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a ton, which makes sense, right? Because it's hazardous.
Yeah.
But we're not going to be able to offer it, but we can't offer that for salons and stylists. And well, where does the extra color waste go? It's going to go in the trash, which then contaminates landfills, soils, waterways, or you're flushing it down the drain into your into your water system where it is corroding your pipes way faster.
Yeah.
So it's ruining your building infrastructure, and a lot of city water filters can't handle it either, like whether it kind of passes through the cracks,
Mm-hmm.
or it's also degrading it at a much faster rate as well too. So it's kind of like, what can we do about it?
Yeah.
There we really don't have um we don't really have an option to take care of it. So we have to
Right.
get really so we have to be really creative with it. Um but that's not fair to put on the hairdresser as well too.
Right. Right.
Personal opinion.
Yeah.
Especially since it can be a little bit more expensive.
Right. It's funny. This reminds me of the house I'm in now. When we bought this house, it had the 1960s asbestos popcorn ceilings. Okay. And we knew that purchasing the home and thought, oh, we'll just pay someone to get that removed because it's not healthy. It's fine, I guess, if it's like stable, but the second you like hit it or touch it, it gets like aerosolized and it's dangerous to breathe in. And so we got some quotes from local contractors to get it removed, and it was upwards of $15,000 just to have someone come in and scrape this stuff off the ceiling. That did not include retexturing after or painting or anything. And after like the third quote, I'm asking these guys like, what is going on? Why is this so expensive? Are you kidding me? We're talking like 2 to 3 days of labor. And he said, the guy that I spoke to said, it is because of the fees to dispose of the asbestos. Because we are commercial, we have to go to a separate dump. We have to it has to be like toxic waste basically, and they have to dispose of it somehow differently than just the average consumer. And so I'm like, okay, here's an idea. I said, what if I do it myself? Do I then have to go dispose it in the special way? He's like, no, actually, because you're a consumer, you're allowed to just go take it to the regular dump and throw it in a pile. And I'm like, no, 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 there's no way that's right. So I call our local dump and I'm like, here's the deal. I'm thinking about doing this myself. Obviously, we'll be safe. We'll get Tyvek suits and respirators and all the thing. But my husband and I are pretty crafty. We could do this. And she's like, yeah, you just bring it in. I'm like, you don't have like a special site that I would have to dump it on? Or like, do I need to have it bagged a certain way? She's like, no, ma'am. I said, so you're telling me I can just back my truck in and just dump toxic asbestos? She's like, yes, because you're just residential. And I said, can I please go to the other place where the commercial people do? And she's like, no, you're not allowed. And then, so I'm like, what? And so we ended up taking it to the dump, and we like triple, quadruple bagged it in these like big bags and put like toxic waste on it, thinking hopefully they'll see that and like do something with it. But they literally wouldn't even let us dispose of it in the way that the commercial guys do.
That is like so crazy.
It is, right?
Like,
and
what?
It blew my mind. I was like, dude, our system is so broken. Like, how is this okay? Like, you recognize that it's really unhealthy to breathe in. And so, like, I could just be some, like, crazy person and just dump, like, bare asbestos into the pile that would just go poof as soon as it would dry in the air. And that's fine. What is going on?
Right. I think that's also what's so interesting is the disconnect that commercial that commercial businesses deal with and just regular individuals. And sometimes I'll hear like, oh, well, it's just to get something going. It's like, well, why can't we just set up why can't we just set up the system from the start? We know all of these things are bad. And I know there's funding, and there's a lot of things that go into it. But if we're talking, climate change, and that, our waters are poisoned and our soil is bad, and that, the air quality is awful. Well, I don't know. I feel like that's probably just something we have to that we should have to do.
Right,
I
right.
mean, especially even on like the public health standpoint. There's, especially there's only so much that like we can do as hairdressers for our clients. I'm sure you've probably seen this, quite a few times, Crystal, where your client comes in and they're, maybe on a new medication, or, maybe they just gave birth, or they're just sick in general. And you see, you know, their skin's different, their
Mm-hmm.
hair's different. And you can only do so much with products, but gosh, if you're living in a sick environment, um, or just an unhealthy environment, I mean, unfortunately, people get sick, and Olaplex isn't going to fix that.
Right, right.
I
Yeah,
mean, Olaplex is great, but it's not going to unfortunately fix the underlying problem, which is, well, they live in an area where the air quality is not
right.
fantastic, or maybe or the water is, maybe it has maybe it
Yeah,
has lead in it. Who knows? Like,
right,
we've been hearing more and more of that, which I know isn't necessarily quite beauty industry related, but but as beauty professionals, we do have to deal with the repercussions too of having to maybe not be able to fulfill our clients' needs, and help them be the best person that they feel like they want to be, because they're drinking water that is not
mm-hmm.
great for them, or so I feel, which I know is like such a kind of like, I guess, shallow layer to it's like, well, there's so much depth between, just in that
Right.
um conversation anyway. But it does also start with, your client coming to you and telling you about their health problems, their history, what's going on with them generally. And we can only do so much, but we feel like we have to do more um because we have that mutual trust with our
Yes,
clients.
absolutely. So then to bring this back around to salons and what we could do, I'd love to hear some of the different areas in the salon where we can make choices to make changes that will help not only us and our business, but our clients that we serve and our communities. You mentioned green circle salons earlier. So I know that's one of them. Are there some other recommendations or kind of like low hanging fruit that you would recommend right out the gate for people to look into to make changes?
So oh gosh. Well, one thing that I will always say first, and I think this is a huge step for everyone, is being mindful of your resources, which I know just sounds, it's not as glamorous, but if you are realizing, hey, by the way, I am totally guilty of this when I was in a salon. So like no judgment. Like, you can, if I can change, you can change. But I would turn the water up fully hot and let my bowl soak. I did not need to do that. Like I can like rinse and scrub off my color bowl. Or just even at the shampoo bowl, just do you need to let the water running well? Um, while you have the toner on, probably not. I always like to suggest to use, it's called an ABS electrical strip. Plug in all of your hot tools, because one, there's less of a chance of a fire anyway, but even when your tools are turned off, anything that produces heat, especially, this is just kind of how it works. It's still going to draw energy if it's plugged into, just a regular outlet. But if you have it in electrical strip, it does stop that energy suck. Plus, then it's so easy just to unplug it when you're done for the day, and you don't have to worry about a fire. It puts your mind at ease. You actually do save so much money anyway, just being mindful of whether it is your water, your electricity. I especially love to say be conscious of your color waste too. And
Mm.
again, we've all been there, but the less color waste that you create, I mean, you're saving money anyway. You don't have to dump all of that in the trash or down the sink.
Hmm.
Um, so it's just I mean, you save so much money and you are saving so many resources just by thinking to yourself, hey, I need to remember to turn off the light, or hey, I don't need to have this water running. Washing all your towels in cold waters is a huge one as well too. Um, and of course, like recycling is great. I always love suggesting using Earth 911. It's a recycling search engine, which is awesome.
I've never heard
So
of that.
oh, Crystal, you're gonna love it. I
Oh,
mean, they even have like, you can search for the closest place that will take old furniture.
what?
I think they actually have hair on there now, which is really interesting to me. Um, that one's I think that's really cool. I don't think there's a lot of
Like a place where
info
you
on that one yet,
can
but
recycle hair or like take
yeah,
hair? Oh,
yeah.
interesting. Huh.
I don't think it's super built up yet, but still, it's the fact that it's an option on this and people can use it for that. That's amazing. So, and honestly, that's how I do like all of my job.
Uh-huh.
So, I love to tell other people like, hey, if you have the time, or just if there's any other weird whatever that you want to recycle, Earth 911 is incredible because you just put in your zip code, you put in what you want to recycle. Um, It'll also tell you how you can recycle it, if you need it broken down for you. I'm someone who like uses that extensively because, you just want to be sure. But it does also lower your trash bill quite a bit as
Hmm.
well too. If you can just back up your plastic bottles and take it to, take it to the nearest recycling center.
Yeah.
Most of our waste is is recyclable. So one of the salons I work with, they said that they noticed that their recycling needs emptied more often than their trash.
Mm-hmm. I
Um,
believe it.
yeah. Oh yeah. Plastic bottles take up so much room.
Mm-hmm.
Foil, you can really condense that. And Crystal, I love that you do this too. Or that you at least, really did do this, going
Mm-hmm.
to just like a scrap metal yard and taking, your huge bag of of foil, and
Uh,
they'll give you a little bit, it's not a lot, but they'll give you like a couple bucks for it.
yeah.
More if, the more you bring, but I always like to say it's like a deposit down for your next box of foils, or it's lunch that day, burrito money.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, But recycling's really great. Of course, you don't have to recycle absolutely everything. You can just recycle your shampoo bottles. It makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
So I mean, again, there's so many different things that you can do in a salon. Even just, I don't know, switching paper towel from paper towel to towels while you clean.
Right.
It's just kind of like those, or using reusable mugs.
Mm-hmm.
Just switch to, glass mugs as opposed to having disposable coffee cups. And, wow, again, you save money, you are saving resources, you're saving energy. And I know I keep coming back to that, but it really does all come back to that, which is very cool.
Yeah, no, for sure. I completely agree with all of that. And I think like probably a big hurdle for a lot of people is just getting over the habit of like the single use items like the paper towels to clean or the paper cups for the coffee or whatever. I mean, in all honesty, like I like drinking out of a mug more than a paper cup anyway. And I think most clients would probably appreciate that too, if I had to guess. It's funny. I struggle with this in my personal life, like the single use items like paper towels, right? I have dogs and I have kids, and sometimes they have gross things that come out of their bodies, and I'm like, ooh, okay. Do I grab a rag for this that then I have to wash because that's disgusting, or do I grab the paper towels? So I have paper towels, but I really try hard to like make a conscious decision of like, can I use a rag for this, or can I scoop it in a paper towel and throw it in the trash because it's really nasty. But just making that, conscious decision and having awareness all the time of like, okay, I understand this is a throwaway item and I'm making that decision, but it's like, I feel an educated decision. Like I would still have paper towels in the salon just in case for something, but like I had rags that I would use to clean also, and dust, right? Because you're doing laundry anyway, you know?
Right, might as well throw them all in. And again, love that you also bring that up too, where it's like if you're going to be making switches, you don't have to make it 100%, and you also don't have to be perfect, right? Everything's a learning curve. And, side note, being imperfect, trying to be a little bit more sustainable is way better than not doing it at all just because you're overwhelmed.
Right.
I'm such a like habit builder, uh that if I and right, I want to do it right the first time, or I'm not going to do it at all. And that's actually been a huge learning curve because it's like, no, take the small steps because it is so much more beneficial in the future because it's sustainable, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yes.
you're creating that pattern and that habit. And I mean, we still, oh gosh, my partner's a big paper towel user. So, I mean, he like ordered a huge thing off of Amazon I don't know, like a couple weeks ago. And he goes, "Babe, we don't have to worry anymore." And I go, I'm not trying to use these. Like, this is great for you. This will last you like 5 years. Like, I've got my towels and my like reusable, like
Yeah.
paper towel, cloth
Mm.
towels.
Yeah.
Uh, so I mean, but hey, whatever. Like it's still taking this step.
Mm-hmm. What's the saying? It's like, don't let perfect be the enemy of good,
Oh,
right?
I love that.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I try to use that in my life in every aspect, and it's hard in some areas, harder than others. But yeah, just like making little changes. I know for me, it's funny. I actually used a color the other day just to try it, honestly, because I keep hearing about these 10-minute hair colors, okay, that are
Oh
like the
gosh.
new greatest latest thing. And I have a client who has like super resistant gray, and I want to use her for some content. She's an old client of mine. So I still can't get away from that word client because I'm not working behind the chair anymore. It's like, whoa.
So exciting.
It is very exciting. So she's a model now, okay? And she's got very resistant gray hair. And so I'm like, she's a perfect model for something like this. If it's going to work on anybody, it's going to work on her. So I brought her in. I mix up this color, and I just about fell backwards because of the fumes from this stuff. It
Ooh.
was awful, like horrible. And it made me realize how wonderful the stuff that I've been using for like the last 12 to 15 years has been. I started using the first organic ammonia-free hair color when it came to the market. I think it was actually called Organics, and it was like this little teeny distributor out of Florida forever ago, because I was like, man, I just want to be like healthier, and for me and for my clients and for the planet. And so I've never gone back to traditional ammoniated hair color. And this like knocked my socks off. I couldn't believe how disgusting it was. And I'm like, oh my God, are people actually using this like every day in the salon? And like, this is normal? Oh, I feel so bad for everyone. And even my client, my model, was like, whoa, that stuff is making my eyes water. And I'm like, I know, I feel bad like washing this down the drain. And then I had a little bit left in the bowl. And it was like this conundrum of like, what do I do? I want to go bury a hole or bury it in a hole in the backyard so that it can like be a toxic waste area and not put it in the trash. It was awful. Why was I telling you that? I forget why I said that.
Oh,
Anyway. I think I was just like I've made choices as a like very long time ago to try to use products. That's where I was going with this. It started with, I'm going to use these ammonia-free hair colors, and then I'm going to use this organic one, and then baby steps. It was like, I'm just going to do this one thing, and now I'm comfortable with that. So now I'm going to do this next thing. And now I'm going to look into this cool eco heads, shower head, because that's interesting. Yes. And it's like these little steps you can take. Then all of a sudden I look around and I'm like, oh, wow. Like, I'm a straight up eco-friendly naturalist. How did that happen?
Which I love that you also point out too, where it's like, so personally, like when I got started, it was I grew up going to national parks being an avid hiker, um, growing up, it's a little bit hard to do it here in Michigan where it's a little bit flatter. But so I'm always like, oh, I'm just very, I don't know, pro environment. I'm always pro environment. But it really does come down to what is the care that you want to give your clients? And we love the people that we service. Like, we have such a beautiful job and such an incredible career, because it's always so much more, right? We're chemists, we're therapists, we become family, we become friends. Like, it's such and we get to be so creative. And then it's like, at what cost? So I think it's so beautiful that you're like, well, no, I also want what's best for my clients. I want to give them what I give to myself. And so it really is like, if you are able to love your clients in that way, because obviously, there's always a lot of barriers, whether it's just accessibility or, financially, we can only do what we can. But if we're able to take some of those small steps, like, what a more beautiful thing we can do. It's just one more like awesome thing we can do for our clients.
And not to mention too, with as much advice as there is in the industry right now to like find your niche, right? Like that is all the speak you hear from everybody. In a competitive market, you have to stand out in order to be, the choice that your clients make to come see you. Being someone who focuses on green choices, I'm doing air quotes, green choices or healthy choices is a niche in itself. It's kind of sad that it's a niche in a way. Like, I feel like hopefully eventually everyone will be there. But right now I feel like it almost gives you an edge, because then consumers are like, oh, wait, I like that. I want that,
Right. No more fumes. I don't have to have all these like horrible panic attacks when another, there's another media coverage about, oh, Johnson and Johnson, or any of the sunscreens you're using contain all of these horrible things, and long-term use, you're probably going to get sick from it. And it's
right.
Like, no one wants to worry about that. That's terrifying.
Absolutely.
Like, what do you do?
Yeah.
And then you get to be the person that people come to and can ask about it, which is really cool too. Especially, like you said, you've been doing this for, or at least kind of going this route for like a decade.
Yeah.
And I mean, so what was it like for just finding items that really jived with you? Because that must have been, a lot more difficult.
It was, and especially because social media wasn't like the tool that it is these days too. I'm trying to remember how I heard of organics. And I think it had like an X on the end. It was like organics, you know? It might have been like some random flyer because we used to get all sorts of promotional content via flyers and magazines in the salon. It might have been one of those. And I was just like, I'll bite. I'm going to check this out. And I had called and just kind of made a relationship with that company, which, you know, a lot of them are hesitant or used to be hesitant to sell to individual hairstylists. That's a little different these days. There's a lot of boutique companies, especially those that have kind of outsider fringe values like, you know, super sustainable or, you know, health oriented or whatever. They tend to want to encourage the individual stylist. But a long time ago, that wasn't the case. It was like you had to be the salon owner and you had to buy in like $5,000 worth of product, then get a wholesale account and this whole thing. And so I kind of had to like sweet talk this company into like letting me do like a small intro kit because I was like, I don't have $1,000 to spend on this, but like I'll spend a couple hundred and, you know, we can go from there. And that was my first step in that direction. And I remember my coworkers being like, what is this company that you're using? Because they came in these little green bottles, not like tubes of color. It was like liquid permanent hair color. And they were definitely organic looking. You know what I mean? Like they were just like, it was like,
they had the look.
They did. It was like, you know, some hippie made this for sure. And so
Someone
they were
in
like,
their cottage.
yeah, exactly. My coworkers were like not convinced it was going to work like real hair color at all whatsoever. And I have to admit, it did take some tinkering and like understanding how the color line worked. And it really wasn't good at everything, but like I was able to use it for a good amount of my clients. And I used it for years until the next thing came out, you know, and then the next thing. And then the reps kind of all, well, because reps used to be like the thing too, right? They come into the salon and talk to you. They all knew I was like the hippie girl. So if they heard of anything that was natural at all, they'd come tell me about it. And they know that I was going to be like, yeah, I'll try it. Like, sure, bring it on, you know?
Okay, I love that for you. That is like such a fun person to be where it's because then you don't have to do all of the crazy research or spending hours on Google being like where can I find this random indie company or or whatever in the middle of Florida as you're all the way across the country and they
Mm-hmm.
can just come to you. That's real. That's when you have it made.
Right. And then honestly, like all of my clients were aware that I was like very health conscious and like eco conscious and all that stuff. So I ended up kind of cultivating a clientele that had interest in that as well. And so they would bring me stuff and ideas and magazines or, written down names. They're like, oh, hey, I heard of this thing. Have you heard of this? And I'm like, no, I guess I'll go figure it out now because I'm curious.
Oh,
And
that's
so, yeah, they ended up being like little advocates for me too, which is cool, you know? So then you just end up building a network of people that all care. And I think that comes back to stylists that maybe serve a niche, you know? It might be easier if that's something you lean into, you're going to attract those clients and they're going to be interested in that kind of stuff. In fact, I had a friend the other day ask me about a shampoo. Have you heard of this shampoo? And I'm like, no, I haven't. I'm going to go look it up. No, though. Thank you, you know?
well,
So I
so
think it's
that's
cool.
so that's funny because that's how I heard of Away, which I know a lot of people, especially that are um very, environmentally conscious. They're like, "Oh, Away is like the best thing ever." And it wasn't even like hairdressers. It was like just two of my friends. And one of them gave me some just skincare products by them. And I was like going, deep into their website. And I'm like, this is like I've never seen anything like this before. This is so cool. They have glass they have glass bottles, everything's aluminum, and especially and I know it can be very hard to recycle aluminum when it's not clean, but I already had, a pile going of just foil candy wrappers and old color tubes and whatever, and I'm like, "Great, I can just throw it in there. How
Mm-hmm.
easy." Which I always, I don't know, recycling metal is always so fun because, right, you then can add more to it, or you're kind of more aware where you're like, hey, I see this, I don't know, this cream is in an aluminum tube. Well, that's one less thing for me to have to throw away, and I can just recycle it and, I don't know,
Right.
make a few bucks
Especially
off of
if you
it.
have one of those little tube ringer things, you know what I'm talking
Hmm.
about? I call them like the torture device. It like squeezes every last drop out of those things. And so I feel like maybe they're cleaner, like especially a squeeze tube like that, like,
Oh, for
you know,
sure. Well, that's so funny because David's toothpaste, it's in an aluminum tube,
that's
and
what I
so that
use.
yeah, that's funny. Yeah, that's what I use too. And so you know how it comes with the metal key?
Yeah.
I just remember looking at it for the first time and they have instructions how to do it, and I'm like, that's so funny because it's just so second nature to us. And I'm like, I kind of just want to get every hairdresser on it because like it's not going to be a hard change, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's funny. My husband's the one that ordered it, and he's like, "Oh, look, it comes with this thing." And I was like, "Oh, honey, I got something better for you. Hold on. Let me get my actual like squeezy, when he's like, "Oh, dang, that thing's intense."
I think the one that you're talking, I think we use those at I went to Nevada school.
Mm.
But now 10 years ago, so crazy to think
Hmm.
about. But and I remember that was like, wow, this really does just squeeze every last drop of it, which is,
Yes.
yeah, can't go wrong with that.
Yeah. And then it's funny, you mentioned Oway. I use that color line. That's who I've been using now for, I think I've been using them almost 10 years, actually.
Oh, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm. They're a
So
great color line.
good to good to know. Were they well, I guess when I was working behind the chair, I used a lot of Kuhn and used a lot of Schwarzkopf. So
Mm-hmm.
I know Kuhn's a little bit it's a little less opaque, and Schwarzkopf can kind of be, this is just how I think of it, can also be just a smidge darker. I mean, how would you say Away
Right.
is, I guess, kind of compared to some of the other color lines that
Yeah,
you
I was
use?
using the Schwarzkopf Essensity, the ammonia-free
Oh,
one that they
yeah.
make before I switched to Oway. And Schwarzkopf is more opaque and a little darker, a little more matte with a lot of their reflex too, right? So they have a little more of like a cooler tone in all the Schwarzkopf compared to the Oway. But Oway just reformulated all of their neutrals and their ashes to try to be a little more cool with those because they were a very warm toned line in general. The distributor that I buy them through is called Simply Organic Beauty. And Simply Organic Beauty also offers another color line called Original and Mineral, which is another permanent color line that is also PPD free, where Oway is not PPD free, but they are ammonia free. Original and Mineral is a very cool based line. And so I used to do Original Mineral and Oway to kind of like complement each other. If I had someone that needed something a little cooler toned, I'd reach for my Original Mineral. But Oway was like my gold standard. And then they recently reformulated, so now it's just all Oway, which is really nice. Their color's beautiful. Like I said, I haven't touched other color in a long time. And I mixed that 10-minute color up and I was just like, blah, like, oh my God, I didn't realize how spoiled I'd gotten. Now, I will say, OA and Original and Mineral are very expensive. And so I understand when people can't make that choice. Like, I think the 10-minute tubes that I bought were like $7 each at the local beauty supply, and OA is like $16.95 a tube.
Oh, wow. Which
So
is,
they're pricey.
and it makes sense because obviously all the work they do put into it, especially when you want to hold just how you do business at a higher standard, whether it's like people are getting paid a little bit better or can afford better health cares or, just getting better ingredients in general, obviously can be a little bit more expensive depending on how you source it.
Right.
But I also love that you point that out too with the expenses of it all, um, as well, because one thing I like to kind of put in people's heads is, we've especially like the last 3 years have been so hard for this, beauty and salon industry, of course, as we both know. And at the time I was behind the chair, and in Michigan we were shut down for 3 months. And how long were you shut down
It was
for
four
again? You said,
months.
yeah. I
Hmm.
mean, and gosh, first of all, how hard that was, but then all of a sudden we had a crazy supply chain shortage where no one had anything. Like I have
Yes.
never seen Cosmoprof just be so empty like
Right.
so many times in a row. And I used to go and, probably once every couple weeks. And it's like, gosh, have you guys even restocked at all? Which is, that's not their fault, but,
Right.
it's just what happens. And then inflation happens, or price gouging can kind of happen a little bit, just people kind of trying to make up numbers. Whatever, business is a business, but then of course it affects us because we can't get the supplies we want, and it can be a lot more expensive. But so I always like to, and this doesn't maybe necessarily help with color, but at least for certain things like different I don't know, different shampoos, conditioners, soaps, even just your cleaning supply, like if you're able to get them in bulk, is such a it can be a little bit more money up front, but then you're making that last way longer, and then you don't have to worry about, oh my gosh, am I going to have enough shampoo to
Right.
last me the next 3 weeks, because they said, whatever company said that's the quickest they can get
Right.
me, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think that's also going to be really interesting to see that shift in cosmetics, because um, a lot of professional line shampoos and conditioners and just different hair products don't come in bulk.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and there are some that are that are starting to, like, I think authentic hair uh concept, I
Okay.
believe, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry that I am, for whatever reason, blanking on the name, but I believe it's Authentic
Oh,
Hair Concept.
authentic beauty concept or?
Oh my gosh, thank you. Yes.
Okay. I'm like, I
Okay.
know this. I'm close.
I'm not gonna lie, there's a salon that's near me that has, like, I think it's Authentic Hair Design, and it's like that's what I think of. I'm like, that's not right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm sorry, say it again. Authentic Beauty.
Authentic beauty concept.
Thank
Right.
you.
Yeah.
So Authentic Beauty Concept is like coming, I've seen that they are offering stylists to they're offering bulk to stylists, so they can do like so they can refill certain products in their salon. Which is awesome because, again, not a ton of people are doing that. I think Plain Products also does bulk.
Mm-hmm.
Uh which again is very cool. We're not all the way there yet, but I'm hoping that also, because of how nice these products are, and unfortunately that can get expensive, but I'm hoping with the rise of being able to bulk certain products, that we can sort of bring, um it can be a little bit easier financially on hairstylists and on salons.
Mm-hmm.
Plus then again, we don't have to rely so much on the supply chain, where it's like, again, if we, gosh forbid, if we have another pandemic or a zombie invasion,
Right.
we'll still
We'll still have
we
our
can
shampoo.
yeah. It's in the bunker with the rest of the canned food.
Yeah. Yeah. That's funny. I've seen some salons locally have like refill stations even for their clients too, which has been really cool to see.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Okay, and especially because, I don't know, since you're all the way on the other side of the country for me, do you mind, have you seen any of them, or kind of how
Not in
they
person.
do
I've
it?
I've seen them just on their social media advertising for it, and then I know we have two stores in town that are just like consumer stores that have like refill stations for stuff where they have like laundry detergent. I think they have shampoo, conditioner, body wash, basically all the like home care needs that you have, and you just go and like refill your containers, which is super cool too.
Oh, I love those.
So I think
They
that culture is growing in this area.
That's really cool, because so the culture here for refillery or zero waste stores seems to be growing quite a bit here in Michigan as well. And so I love that you also mentioned just the culture. I will say everyone that owns uh, a refillery or zero waste store seem to all be like the nicest human beings you'll ever meet, or just
Totally.
very community like, active. And um so I love that you also bring that up, because that's a huge thing that I try to talk to salons about, or try to help like partner together is their local refillery. If of course not everyone is obviously this lucky to have one nearby, but partnering salons with refilleries is, I mean, just even for your bathroom soap, your cleaning supplies, so we have a couple I have, like, I don't know, 3 or 4 refilleries just like circling me, which is, the best.
Mm-hmm.
Um and over in um one of them like 20 minutes away, I'm just going to name drop. So it's Walking Lightly
Mm-hmm.
Refillery. um but they partner with a salon in their area, and and they talk about it. They get their soaps there, they get their cleaning supplies there. What else they do, I'm not really sure, but like I just remember being, because I went to go get my hair done there, actually solely because I saw that they were partnering together, and I've heard, incredible things about this salon as well too. Like they do a lot of thrifting for their salon. They use a lot of um, just very natural, low tox products,
Mm-hmm.
and of course, obviously partnering with Walking Lightly, this
Mm-hmm.
refillery, and they had like their own little window sticker, window sticker that says like, "Oh, we are part proud partners." Wow, it is a it's a sentence today.
Woo!
Proud partner of with Walking Lightly, and I thought that was very cool because again, it shows like, hey, we just salons are such an integral part of a community.
Yes.
I mean, and when you see also like other small businesses really just work together in some way, I think it just creates such a strong bond, and it really shows other people that, like, it's just like during the pandemic, everyone was, I think it was the first time in a very long time that, you know, as a collective, we're all like, I am scared, you are scared, we are all here together, though. Make sure you know that, like, I love you and I'm here for you. And I think it really kind of gives, maybe not as dramatically, but it gives off the same vibe,
Yeah.
when you see, um, all these small businesses working together in a community.
Yeah. I wonder if I don't know if every hairstylist knows this about themselves. At some point in my career, I recognized how powerful a salon environment is for a community, right? Like we are the original influencers before there was
Oh, yeah.
social media, you know? It's like we hold the power to make people feel good or not if things don't go well. But truly, we're trying to make people feel good. And we are bringing, style and convenience and happiness and all these things. And the things that we know and share with our clients trickle out into the community. And so it's a perfect place for a hairstylist who is a little more eco-conscious or a little more health conscious, whatever, to be able to share their knowledge and their expertise to create that butterfly effect, if you will, in the community. And I think like on the outside looking in, I don't know that people, maybe they value us differently now after the pandemic. That was kind of an eye opener for a lot of people. But prior to that, I don't think a lot of people looked at salons as like a valuable member of society, if you will, right? And I think things are changing now. I think more people are recognizing that, and I hope even more hairstylists do. And I wonder when you work with people, when you work with stylists and you help coach them to work on their sustainability, is that part of the conversation that you end up having with them? Is like the power and the impact that they can have on their community, you know?
Oh, absolutely. It especially, I think, and this is, I think all beauty professionals have been through this, is, when you say what you do for work, and people will then always go, "Oh, so you're just a hairdresser. Oh, so you're
Oh,
just a makeup artist, or you're just a lash extensionist." And then also putting out there, like, well, you can always go to college for business and open a salon. I remember, and again, this is like 10 years ago, and I remember, I think, at the time, I had a couple other friends in my grade that ended up going to beauty school after, and they're doing great, which is, I love that they chose that. I was the only one in my grade that was choosing to go into cosmetology, which was crazy because it was like I graduated with like 500 kids.
Wow.
Um, I don't know how I was the only one at that time, but I had so many people just say that, like, well, you can open a salon later and take business classes. And I remember just looking at them and saying, who said I wanted to open a salon? I
Right.
mean, granted, like, it takes a very special person and personality and mindset. And I just knew that was not me. It was like the exact same reason why I didn't go to college. I
Mm-hmm.
knew I was like, that's not going to be an environment that I thrive.
Mm-hmm.
And so again, so belittling, or it's always, well, you only just did a trim, so can't you just like cut the price? Or, I think we have this internal that we are all people pleasers.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we just are. We are all people pleasers, and we
Yeah.
want to just really give as give all the love that we can to people. Um which can obviously be very tiring and exhausting, but like you said, we are very we are people are understanding our worth a little bit more. Why are we charging $100 for a haircut? Well, it like all of everything that it costs, like behind the shampoo that I used on you, the products I used on you, my time, your physical body. I mean, like it, and people are understanding more. You're right. It is
Mm-hmm.
$100, and I will never ask you to make it $10 again, which,
Yeah.
um, and I think, and again, remember being in beauty school and being told, do not talk about certain topics. And I think that kind of disconnects us from our clients sometimes, where I'm not saying, like, get into a full blown screaming match about politics, but like little things where it's, because I know you have this repertoire with your clients where it's like talking about beyond the chair of like, well, why aren't we talking about some of the issues in the beauty industry, like, um, kind of toxic, maybe some of the toxic things that are in our industry, and how can we change it as a
Yeah.
hairdresser, as a client? I think with us having those conversations more and making people more aware of just like, oh, like, oh, I'm going to start recycling too, or whatever. I think that's such a cool, I think it's, again, so bringing it around back, we are such a big part of this, just of the community, and people understanding and starting to kind of realize more like, hey, you do, we have this mutual understanding now of respect, as opposed to maybe it not necessarily being that way for a while. So it is cool how that is changing. Even though it was sad, because that was probably because of the pandemic, and
Right.
it's a silver lining in everything that
Yes.
happened from that.
Yes. Yeah, and I think too, with our influence as service providers in our communities, I've always believed that if you come from a place of like excitement, like the way that I would approach things with my clients always is like, guess what I just learned, or you'll never believe this, and then it like turns into a story because we're all good storytellers, right? So then you tell a story that's inspiring to them. So you're not like, hey, ding dong, you can't recycle that or whatever. You're like, oh my gosh, I just learned that. And it's like exciting and interesting. And then it positions you as the expert in the situation even more and elevates your value as a service provider. And so, I guess when I guess my 2 cents here is like, as a service provider, if you're going to share that information and have that influence, just come from a place of like, I have something to share with you, right? And I have value because I know these things, not like I'm doing it right and you're doing it wrong. You need to listen to me, buddy boy, or whatever.
Oh, for sure. Well, and no one's gonna, I mean, and truly, I believe everything should come out of love, for sure,
Yes.
because right, it's very authentic, and it's very grounded then, because it's like, hey, we should have a discussion about this. And especially if people are if people are being told that they're doing something wrong and this is the way you should do it, they're probably not going to do that. Out of me personally, just as a child, I remember like I would want to clean my room and my mom would come by 5 minutes later and go, "You should clean your room. I want you to clean your room." And I'd be like, "Well, then I'm not doing it." Like,
Just
you
because you
know,
told me.
yeah, just because you told me, I'm definitely not going to do it now. And not saying, I don't think there are a lot of people that are like that, but I think it really, if you are, like you said, if you're coming from a place where it doesn't feel authentic, or it's like or it's mean spirited,
Mm-hmm.
um it really sets a negative tone as well
Yeah.
too. And what people really, I mean, who really wants to listen to a negative tone? I don't think anyone wants to.
No. Gross.
No.
I
That
don't.
doesn't sound like fun. Yeah.
No, not at all. And like I feel like we have such a fun career. It should be exciting and fun and happy and I've always enjoyed it. So yeah, I don't want the smarminess.
Right. And there is just so much innovation in our industry. Like, again, I think, as sad and horrible as going through 2020 and going, the pandemic was, gosh, how many cool things have come in our industry because of it? Like, we're having more of the talk of sustainable practices in the salon. We're coming up with new ways how to do how how to have, I don't know, products. Like, we're talking about
Oh,
supply chain
yeah.
and logistics, or even just, how can we just make things better? And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's very cool. And again, how to have even just like a better communication with your client as well too. And how especially now when they're, finances have been tough on everyone, including your clients. So it's like, hey, let's really find a middle ground. You want to be platinum blonde, but you can't come in every 3 weeks. So how can we do this together? So there's a lot of teamwork involved with that too. And
Mm-hmm.
teamwork comes a lot of cool new ideas.
Absolutely. Yeah. Almost everybody that I've talked to on the podcast had some sort of a huge shift in their life professionally after the pandemic. It was like we all kind of had a moment to sit back and go, huh, is this working? I don't know if this is working for us. What can we do different? So it's been really interesting to see what people have come up with since then. So for you, did this business and the idea of being like do you call yourself a sustainability coach? Is that like an appropriate term, or like how do you title yourself?
I actually really like that, but no, I just say eco consultant.
Okay, that's good too. That sounds a little more like schmancy. Um, but did that idea kind of come to fruition in that pause that we had in the pandemic, or was it before then? When did this come about for you?
So it was 2019. So it was actually a year before the pandemic, and I was working at a it's like a, you know, I think 25 stylists at the time, and we also had a full, you know, we had full nail service, we had a full spa, we do bridal, we do everything. So there's a lot of us. So of course, then there's a lot of waste. But during that time, I actually went through a really bad breakup, and which he also lived a couple hours away. So honestly, I had so much time after, and I felt sort of I shouldn't say stuck in my career, but I was ready for something new. Like, I wanted to do something more. Right? Like, do I take another class? Do I learn extensions? Like, what's my next thing? And I remember, and again, huge nature nerd. So, I wanted to kind of find something that fulfilled that need. Um, and I remember just looking at my boss one day, and he was doing inventory and was just taking a big bag of plastic, bottles out to the dumpster. And I go, "Do we recycle those?" And he goes, "No." And I'm like, the recycling center is just down the road. Just give it to me. So I just like kind of was like, I want this now. So I like sat down with them and I talked to them and I was like, put these bags aside for me. It was just the bottles too. And I'm like, put these aside for me. Let me just take them. They're not quite on my way home, but they're 5 minutes from the salon. Like the recycling center is 5 minutes from the salon. Like, why not? It's easy, it's free. Just a bunch of dumpsters. So it's going to take
Mm-hmm.
2 seconds. And kind of from there, then I started to look more into it. I was looking into the green circle salon solution, like maybe for the salon I was working at. Um, and just kind of like, well, I don't know what am I going to do next? But I kind of really just did the recycling for about a year, and then we were going to grow it in the salon I was working at. I was going to start doing foil, but then the whole world shut down. So that and I'm not gonna lie, I'm glad it did for my mental health as well too. Like you said, everyone kind of was able to sit back and be like, what's my next step?
Mm-hmm.
And I was honestly feeling really burnt out behind the chair anyway. And um I was gonna go on a year-long road trip, just me, and like just go to all the places I wanted to go, all the national parks, all the hiking, all the art museums, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And instead I didn't do that, and instead we had a pandemic, and I stayed home and thought about it for three for 3 months, and it was just kind of like, okay, the wildfires are going on in the West Coast, which I used to live in California and Washington, so that kind of hit a little bit harder for me. And I think it was just also a very emotionally charged time. So
Yeah.
when we did come back to work and you're hearing all of this and you're hearing about all how these hurricanes are getting worse and worse, and I couldn't help but be in the break room and cry, because I cry at everything anyway, but I mean, I cry it all the time, but it really just was kind of a big wake up call where, like you said, it was that shift where I'm like, okay, how can I create a bigger impact to protect the people that I love, my
Mm-hmm.
my clientele, my friends, my family, just kind of, and that's just always how I've grown up is, how can I service the people of, wherever I'm at, or the world, or, Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
Um and so it was kind of like, I'm one person, I can't do this by myself, so how can I teach others to have this superpower too?
Right.
And then I quit my job, and so I've been doing this now for about, like, I guess officially 2.5 years.
Mm-hmm.
So it's I don't know, it's been really fun. It's just the people I get to meet, like Crystal. Like, I enjoy meeting you. Like, would I have
Same.
ever met you if I was still behind the chair? Maybe not. I
Right.
don't know. And I've met a lot of other really beautiful people across the country that want to do the same thing, and they just, or, they didn't even realize, these kind of things were an option, for whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so it's been such a cool journey, so far, just helping others, and even just, talking about it, the
Mm-hmm.
awareness of it. Like, no one know. I mean, how many people know that 120 billion units of packaging are created globally,
I
for
know.
cosmetics, right? Like, so it's a lot of, and it's definitely a fun way to really meet others who just want to save the world also,
So
in
you
their own
never
way.
got to go on your road trip then?
No,
Mm.
unfortunately not. But Chris, my car, instead of becoming my road trip buddy, she is now officially my tiny trash car. So it is amazing what we can fit in there. So it's kind of like a road trip in that way. I didn't know what I was going to be able to fit in there living out of it. So,
Yeah. I'm just sitting
um,
here thinking like, man, you should put yourself on tour as the eco coach or the sustainability coach, traveling around to all the cool places you want to see, but visiting salons and like setting up coaching sessions with them so that you could do your road trip.
not gonna lie, that definitely has crossed my mind. I have one idea that I'm on right now that I will probably shelf for later, because I have, you know how it is. You've got a million ideas, and so you just write them all down, and then when the time is appropriate. But I have been working on a series for the last couple of years of what products you can use when you're like camping or just kind of outside in nature in general. Like, you can't necessarily use if you're gonna go backpacking or you're gonna go camping, what you're putting on your body affects the area around you. Whether
Hmm.
it's you go in the water, you are, I don't know, just sweating everywhere.
Right.
um whatever it is. And so I've been doing a lot of research of what are some of these, what are some good products that I could take backpacking with me. So me being you know totally an opportunist, and also a just trying to be positive about it. I have the audacity to think I can like go talk to certain brands and be like, "Hi, sponsor me, give me products. I will go camping and tell you how great it is that you can use these in nature and not ruin the environment around you." Um, that's not happening right now, but
I love
but
the
that is
idea.
like, but I've already dreamed about it like 4 times this week, so
Perfect.
maybe eventually.
It's
But
manifesting happening here.
well, I'm just honestly trying to think, how can I go camping for 2 weeks and not have to worry about work and like
Yeah.
cash. So
Perfect.
like just as like a fun thing, right?
Yeah.
But but no, so but I will definitely be you'll be the first one I
Perfect.
contact about that too. I'll be like, "Crystal, let me come visit you."
Yes. I'll be like, let me hook you up with some salons in Reno. We'll get this going, and I'll take you on all cool hikes around here that I know of.
Ah, I love that for us. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Nevada is very beautiful. I've only seen the Vegas Henderson area, but I would love to see everything else.
It's
'Cause it
kind of a
seems so cool.
sleeper zone. Like you wouldn't know, everyone's like, "Oh, it's just desert." And you're like, "Yeah, but if you look closely, there's a lot of life there." And the desert is really cool. It's different. It's not like the woods, but I love it.
Well, what's so cool about it is it's so resilient.
Hmm.
Which I think really attests to kind of just our earth in general. Is it's so resilient. I mean, right? It's kind of like when we do, maybe we have a couple clients where we're like, "Oh, wow. Oh my gosh, please tell me I did not melt off her hair. I accidentally left her sitting for, 10 extra minutes." And you're like, "Wow, look at that. Her hair is great."
Right.
It's really resilient. It can really take anything. And that's how I kind of honestly feel about the planet in general. It's very resilient.
Hmm.
But it could use a bond builder
I
probably
was
in
just
there.
gonna say that. It could use a little Olaplex, little bond builder here and there. That's so funny.
A number two for 10 minutes.
Yes, yes. Let's all do our part.
I, I love that we have the same mind, so thank
Yeah,
you for that.
that's
um,
awesome.
but right, I just, we take care of everyone else, and I think this is such a small a small and fun, different way that we take care of our most important client, which is, the home that we live on. And
Yeah,
plus, gosh, I mean, this is also selfish on my end. It's because I really like seeing all the green and all the trees, and I want to keep that going
yeah,
because it makes me happy, and I know it makes a lot of other people happy. So plus, the oxygen of it all, but
yeah.
we're not going to mention that.
Although I do want to ask you, speaking of oxygen, I know when we chatted before, you mentioned you had a list of like the best plants to have in something like a salon space. That do they like sequester the toxins in the air better, or do they just like thrive indoors better? There was something you had about air quality with plants in the salon. I want to hear about.
So there was, I believe it was either 2020 or 2021. NASA did a kind of just like an air study. I believe they were testing for well, for their spacecrafts, because obviously you are in this small space for a long period of
Mm-hmm.
time. So they were testing with plants of like, hey, what are some good filters, basically. Um So then, of course, I went and looked, and I'm like, well, I wonder if any of these would be good for like a salon space. Um, and there were a couple that were great for, I believe it was, I think it was just ammonia, but it's
Okay.
to help filter ammonia out of the air. So, and I actually, and it's funny, I loved this one. I think this was my like favorite thing that I like researched.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just made, I like to call them a bite-sized education guide.
Uh-huh.
So it's, you know, like a couple slides, and it just basically tells you what the best plants are, what are the plants that does remove ammonia,
Uh-huh.
but also then how easily it is to keep them alive, because coming from a black thumb, I kill everything, like I swear. I've gotten to an orange thumb,
Oh.
so I I think I hit like a good yellow last year, but we're back down to orange. So, you know, we're trying.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
but so a couple of the plants that are great for filtering ammonia in your salon, peace lilies
Mm.
are really great. Flamingo lilies. I think a lot of lilies are
Okay.
pretty. I think lilies are pretty good, but the difference between peace and flamingo lilies, though, is peace lilies are easy to take care of, or
Yes.
easier.
Very.
Um, Flamingo lilies are not. So their
Okay.
attention level is a little bit higher.
Gotcha.
Parlor palms are
Mm-hmm.
great. Those are easy to take care of too. Lady palms are also really nice. Chrysanthemums
Mm.
are a good one, and those are pretty much about the
Nice.
I mean, there's a lot of other plants. There's a good Wikipedia article on the entire study itself. So if anyone is interested in seeing, you know, hey, what are some other plants I can just bring in home,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and help maybe filter out some other stuff. Um, you know, that's a good source, but those are definitely the ones for salons.
Have you ever heard of, oh, I forget there's a process. Like some plants are better nighttime sequesterers of toxins in the air, and others are better at daytime. So
Oh.
I heard of this because in my salon that I had snake plants everywhere because they're like, you basically ignore them and they're happier than if you pay attention to them, right? And I think they're pretty. So I had like tons of snake plants. And then I'm thinking in my head, like, oh, they're going to absorb like all the bad things and give me oxygen. Great. And then I read that they do the most work at nighttime. And so, like, a nickname for a snake plant is like a bedroom plant. And so, you're supposed to have them
Oh.
where you sleep to help filter the air while you sleep. And so, I was like, oh, well, these aren't doing any good during the day, then darn it. So, I took him out of the salon and brought him home into my bedroom
Yeah.
just because I was like, shoot, but I was like, that's really interesting. And I think it's interesting that there are some plants that are better at absorbing ammonia, others that are better at carbon dioxide. So that's really cool. And lilies in particular, I like personally because the first one, the peace lily, I like plants that can talk to me if they need care. And a peace lily can get really wilty when it's thirsty and then like perk right back up when you water it. And so I consider that like, oh, it's telling me it needs water, right? Like all my pothos plants will kind of go like, oh, and then they perk right back up. Whereas like if it's the kind of plant that like once it starts to droop, it's already done, like we're not friends and it is not in my house.
I love that you mentioned that about peace lilies, because I feel like I see them all the time on the dramatic houseplants subreddit, which is like how I know I'm not doing the worst job at being a plant mom. Um, but also like you said, as soon as it gets to the wilty level, it's like, are we going to recover from this or not? But I
Right.
like how you say that. Like having them talk to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I like that. That's
It
cool.
helps to have plants that are able to talk to you with your green thumb situation. Like I definitely still have a brown thumb with like the high maintenance ones that you have to have on a specific schedule, but snake plants, great. Pothos and the lilies that can talk to me, we're all good. We're golden.
Actually, one of my one of my friends told me the other day, because she's not great with plants either, I guess, just like to remember to water them. But what she'll do is she will freeze a bunch of ice cubes, and every Sunday she like puts an ice cube on, if it's like, a regular size potted plant, I guess. Like,
Mm-hmm.
um, she's like, I just put one ice cube and it's good for the week. And I'm like, that's brilliant.
That
Why
is.
don't we talk about this more?
Yeah, seriously. That could be easy for hairstylists in the salon too. Like, hey, on inventory day, just go around and put some ice cubes on your plants and you're good to go. It's not something you have to think about, really, right? Just keep it going.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I will say, so there is a study that just came out from it is a different organization, but they are Green Salon Collective, and they're from the UK.
Mm-hmm.
But they actually just did a study on hair and potted plants. And so they have a couple different they've done a couple different trials where it's like, hair at the bottom of the pot, hair on top, and then with, no hair at all. But it looks like hair actually helps leaves stay a little bit greener and actually grow a little taller, which
Hmm.
is very cool. I actually have been, because I just remember hearing hair was great for soil because of its high nitrogen content.
Mm-hmm.
And so now I put hair in like all of my potted plants. Um, which is great. A lot of people would just this sounds weird, but a lot of people would just give me like a bag of their hair and be like, you can donate this, right? And I can't, but or like this is, like 5 years, I don't know, 5, 10 years ago. I'm not kidding, since like my entire career. I just have had this bag of hair that has followed me because people will, like, in like all of my apartments, because they're like, here's some hair. And I'm like, why? I don't know. But I'm not gonna say no because I feel rude and I say yes to everything because
That's
I don't
hilarious.
have boundaries. Yeah. So I have this bag of hair just following me, and I'm surprised no one has been like, Hannah, what's up with this? They're just like, oh yeah, of course you have a bag of hair. So any weird, but which was great because then I started like, and just from, doing haircuts and stuff, out of my house, I just take all of that and I use it for my compost pile. That I now have in the backyard. That's a new development that's been really fun.
Mm-hmm.
And then yeah, just putting them in all my plants, and they don't seem to be mad, so
That's funny.
that's good.
I kind of had the same thought years ago with the compost pile in my backyard, and I started bringing hair home to put in that also. And I think I put way too much hair, like it was like too much browns versus greens, right?
Hmm.
And it was just like this hair mixture. Like it, I was like, oh, this kind of ruined it. That's not so good. Okay. And I've been trying to figure out over the years what to do with the hair too. Actually, I have a funny story. At one point, I had like a home salon in Texas, and I had this idea that I was going to like mix the hair into the soil on the side of the house because it was like really soggy. It's like very humid there. And so I was like, oh, well, I've tried this before and the hair like dried everything out. So I'm going to like mix it in there and then do some planting. So I literally just took like my bucket of hair and like dumped it out the window, out the side to like deal with later. And then I kind of forgot about it.
Oh no.
And then one day I see these like squirrels running back and forth, and I couldn't tell what they had in their mouth at first. And then I was like, oh my God, they're taking the hair. They made like a squirrel nest in the tree. And it was like this hairball up there that I never took down. So like by the time we moved a couple of years later, this hairball is still up in the tree. And I'm like, someday that thing's gonna fall out of the tree and people are gonna be like, what the heck was this? Like, yeah, hi, that's
The-
strange hairdresser here.
right. No, it's just an unfinished toupee, whatever.
Right, exactly. Someone's wig got stolen.
Oh, but hey, work smarter, not harder. Those squirrels know what they were talking about.
I
I mean,
know.
hair is a very durable fiber, it sounds like. It's cool because, okay, so I'm just gonna say again, Green Salon Collective has a lot of really cool R&D developments that they um I don't know, just that they do, I guess. Like
Hmm.
they've been working with I think they like made hair fibers into like rope,
Whoa.
like legit just like rope, and they're like, oh, you can like use this for your garden or for a swing set. I don't know, but it's like so strong.
Hmm.
And it's like, and I won't even think about it. And it's like, we know how strong hair is.
Right.
Um, but, there are just certain times where it's like, wow, hair is this strong? Like, that's just that's crazy that it can do that, or that it soaks up oil, and which is great for, the Matter of Trust organization has been they've been definitely leading the way with that.
Mm-hmm.
They make these hair mats and they use them to soak up oil, from ocean spills,
Yes.
that unfortunately end up happening, which is like, I don't know, just like really cool. It's like, how do you think of all of these
Right.
things? One thing that I really want to mess around with, that they sparked the idea, was hair mats for storm for storm drains, just like
Oh,
in our cities, which or even just using them at the oh gosh, like the automotive places where they do, oil changes. And I mean, there's
yeah.
oil kind of everywhere, especially from cars, and especially in Michigan being the motor city. It's kind of like, well, that's a really cheap and effective way to, even if you maybe have to clean them up after a rain, it's still like, but you are taking a preventative measure, and it's also very, um I don't want to say, and it's very inexpensive. Like, y-
Right.
there's not going to never be a shortage of hair. Everyone
Right.
gets their everyone gets their hair cut. So it's like, wow, how many possibilities there are with just something that we would have never thought about.
Yeah.
Um, but Crystal, I think there is actually, if I remember right, there is a Matter of Trust organization, like satellite thing right next to you, or
Oh,
somewhere in Nevada, I believe.
okay. I
Um,
know when I worked in California, we worked with that company, and I think we would ship the hair to them. And I feel like it wasn't a huge cost to ship them. So maybe it is in Nevada. We have a lot of warehouses here, like a lot.
I believe they also have, because I know they do tours, and I think they have like volunteering stuff as like a community thing, just like a community thing that you can do.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's like very, I mean, you are seriously in the right place, because I believe they came out of California, if I believe correctly, which would also make sense, just, being on the coast and
Yeah.
being by the ports.
Yeah, totally. I'm going to look into that. I'm curious if they're nearby. They could be down South Nevada also, but I'll check it out.
Field
Cool.
trip.
Yeah. Well, Hannah, this has been really great, but I want to ask you one last question before we wrap up here. So I kind of sprung this on you, so I don't know if you have a good story lined up, but I like to ask people, like, what is the funniest or like strangest thing that's happened in your professional career or with what you're doing now in your coaching business? Because we all have funny stories, right? Is there anything that you can share with us that would be a cool little anecdotal story, whether it was, how you became more eco-conscious or anything you could share?
Um, oh gosh. Well, I will have to say, I think my favorite part about doing what I'm doing is actually, honestly, just hearing the questions that other people want to ask me. So like, I am involved in a lot of I'm pretty involved in the sustainable networking like space in Michigan, or I guess more so Detroit area. But so everyone that's like, again, in sustainable business, they love to ask me hair questions, right? Because then it's like, oh, so like, what who can I go to for a haircut, that's like really into that, or or again, I talk about, honestly, hair is the most fun thing to talk about because there's so many different things, so it always blows everyone's mind. That, and like the whole gray area rant with chemicals in the salon industry. I had like 10 hairdressers kind of like gather around me one day and listen to me just like babble. Like I babble all the time. Like that's just kind of my favorite thing I do.
Uh-huh.
And I went on for 10 minutes about this, and I got really like into the rabbit hole, and they were all like really, they were all staring at me really intently, like, wow, like this this is crazy. And it's like, well, talking trash is just, always interesting, to begin with. But I think my favorite thing is the place that I go to recycle my foil. They always get really excited when I come by, but they're always like, guys, the foil girl's back. Because they're obsessed with all of the different pattern foils now
Oh,
that are out.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
like, and so, and sometimes they ask, they're like, oh, what brand is that? So,
Oh, how
well, shout out to
funny.
Framar, because you really like turned these guys' like all of their days around. They're like, oh, is that a cactus, or
Oh
like,
my
is
gosh,
this a
how
rainbow?
funny.
Yeah, no, they love it. So, and I think I like one of the last times I went, a girl was helping me, also named Hannah, funny enough, and she had like
Uh-huh.
the coolest hair. And so we're bonding about that. And I was like, oh yeah, here's all my foil. And she goes, oh my God, you're the foil girl. And I'm like, oh, I love that. I like feel like I should just start putting that on my LinkedIn or
I was
something.
gonna say, yeah, that should be somewhere along with what was that the first nickname that you had? The
Recyclops.
Recyclops or Foil Girl.
Start a merch line, then everyone else can have it
You
too.
totally should.
Be the
Yeah.
foil girl in your community. It's a
Yes.
fun time.
It'd be a little piece of flair I'd wear.
Put it on your resume.
Yes. Hashtag Foil Girl at your
Yeah.
service. That's awesome. Well, I love that so much, and I'm glad you're the foil girl and the Recyclops and the salon, what do I call you? Sustainability consultant?
Oh
Or
shoot, you
sustainability
had it.
coach.
That's what it was.
Sustainability
That was
coach.
cute.
I
Yeah.
like it. All of this is so good. And, every little bit does count, right? I feel like we get kind of doom and gloom with the numbers of, where the world is headed and the amount of waste and all this stuff. And you think, am I really making a difference? And I think we really are. And it sounds like you're helping a lot of people make a difference, which is fantastic.
Well, thank you, Crystal. I think what really helps with my eco anxiety basically is because oh God, there's definitely been some time periods where I'm like, no, the world's over, and I'm crying or whatever, which, it's usually just because I haven't slept a lot that week.
Yeah.
But I think it is so cool that it's like when people are like, but I'm one person and I can't make a difference. But it's like, by all of us together that create this, like everyone that you mentor, everyone that you talk to, um, it's so much part of the bigger picture. It's like passing it forward. It You do one thing and 12 other people will do the same. And I think that
100%.
and that's what's not only so cool about our industry, but just kind of humanity in
Mm-hmm.
general, which is really beautiful.
I
So
agree.
I appreciate you having me on here, and and also just doing what you do, and also being just that voice for I mean, you know what you're talking about. I love that you have been sort of on this path for 10 years, and I think it's really cool that now you kind of have, now that this part of our industry is growing, and because of social media, like it's just so much easier to connect and be able to make that impact together. So, Crystal, I'm so glad that we get to share that together. I think
Aw,
that's very cool.
me too. Thank you. And so, will you do me a favor for anyone that's listening that wants to learn more about you or your services and what you're doing? Where do we find you? Where's the best place to look?
So you can find me on my website, www.salonvironment.com. Also, of course, our Instagram is where we are most active. We do also have a Facebook. We do also, well, I also have a LinkedIn. So, um, You can, and of course, you can always email me. I'm just, whatever you need, whatever questions you have, I always like to be as accessible as possible. So, you can find me, if you want to email me, if you want to DM me, whatever. Please, like I want to be friends.
Wonderful. And then you said you had some bite-sized resources available. Are those just available on your website, or are they like an email sign-up thing if anyone was curious to look at those?
So we have a couple of different options. We do have a newsletter. It usually it comes out first of the month, and that will have whether it's some resources or just things that are coming up for us, or maybe some fun, or maybe some just general climate news or actions you can take. But on our website, under the education tab, we have um, it's just they're just called our info guides, but they have a couple of different topics. So we have stuff that is for recycling in the salon specifically, uh, like environmental practices, just, you know, cl- uh, beauty news, kind of like, and action news that are
Mm-hmm.
kind of intertwine, and a couple of other little things. We have articles we like to come out with as well too, if you're more of a reader, but we like to create these bite-sized um, education guides because it's, well, one, so if you're going to only have 5 minutes on your lunch break anyway, and you're going to be scrolling through Instagram, this is another thing that you can scroll through, um and still learn something. We do obviously also all have them on our Instagram as well too. So and sorry, one last thing, we do have a page of just resources that you can use if you want to. For example, if you want to recycle and you want to find Earth 911, you can go there and you can use that link. There's a ton of different links, like you can find your nearest refillery, a couple of the different organizations that we just talked about today, um, and just a lot of other, petitions you can sign, just a lot of very cool things that can just help you date, every day, or, if you want to, I guess, do a little bit more action in your
Yeah.
day-to-day life. So there's just options for everyone. We just want to make it as easy as possible for whatever you want to accomplish.
That's awesome. Thank you. I will make sure to put a link to that in the show notes for this episode.
Awesome.
So, well, this has been a true pleasure. Seriously, you're a gem. I enjoy our time. And if you don't make it out to Reno anytime soon, I'll have to just be in touch on Instagram. But if you do make it out to Reno, seriously, let me know. And maybe we'll try to circle back in, like, I don't know, 6 months or something, and just check in and see how things are going. I know there's been some interesting articles that you shared with me earlier, with like the plastic eating fungi and cool stuff. So there could be some fun things to talk about in a few months.
Oh my gosh, yeah. No,
Yeah.
especially with the rate of how different innovations are just happening, it's going to be really fun to see how the beauty industry also takes those on as well too. But I
Yeah.
agree. I love that we have just been sharing things back and forth, by the way. That has been such a treat.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and again, thank you for having me um
Awesome.
here today. It has been such a pleasure, Crystal.
Yay. That's the whole point, right? Awesome. Okay, well, we will go ahead and sign off for now. And then for anyone that wants to check you out, we'll see you on Instagram, okay?
All right, see you then.
Okay. Thanks,
Bye,
Hannah.
Crystal.
Okay, bye.
All right, friend. Well, that's a wrap for this episode of the Your Hair Mentor podcast. It has been my pleasure to be here as your host. Again, my name is Crystal Green. And until next time, my friend, as I always love to say, have a wonderful hair day, and I'll see you then. Okay, bye.